On Monday, July 22nd, 2024, 9 full days after the failed assassination attempt of Donald Trump, Secret Service Director Kim Cheatle testified before Congress to deliver to the American people the answers we deserve. What the hell happened? And yet somehow, amazingly, we know even less. In fact, all we do know at this point is that it is so much worse than we thought. Live from the studio, I'm Jimmy Selesky.
Perfect.
All right, folks, I know that there are some obvious, huge new developments in the political sphere just within the past 48 hours. Joe Biden has dropped out of the race. We're going to get into that hopefully on the next episode. But first, let's not forget that a little over a week ago, the former president and current frontrunner nearly had his head blown off at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, I know that 9 days ago seems a bit more like 6 months ago in internet years. I get it. Things move fast. But if you'll allow me, I'd like to take some time to circle back on this ancient history and take a closer look at this long, tedious, extremely frustrating hearing. Because if you thought that this was going to be the day where the director of the Secret Service and definitely not DEI hire Kimberly Cheatle herself was going to show up and testify before Congress, although by order of court subpoena, and dispel of not only the crazy conspiracy theories, but also clear up the smoke, fill in the blanks, answer the questions that the citizens of this country have about this incredibly shocking and historic event. Well, then you, my friend, were sadly mistaken. Because whereas this should have been a moment where we could be assured that our leaders are on it, that not only was this obviously not orchestrated, come on, but this complete lapse in security and colossal failure on every level is in no way emblematic of our agencies as a whole. We are being transparent. We are being forthcoming. We are holding the proper people accountable. And we are sending a message to our enemies in this country and abroad that if you think you're going to get a crack at our president through our Secret Service, I got bad news, buddy. Not today. Not today. Well, unfortunately, that's not today. Aww. Now, of course, we're going to get into the broader takeaway. What does this all mean? Where do we stand? Not just in terms of this investigation, but really the country as a whole. What happens next? Because this, as we're coming to find, is so much bigger than just what happened last week. But first, let's take a look at some of the highlights and do something that we've never really done before on this channel, which is hand out some rare W's.
Yeah, boy.
And some common L's. And first on the docket, of course, we have Kim Cheatle and the Secret Service. And this should go without saying if you're paying attention. Big L. Make it bigger. Woo! Wow. What an L they took today.
Did they share with you how many shell casings were on the roof?
They have shared with me the evidence.
Did they share with you how many shell casing were on the roof?
Yes.
Okay, how many were there?
I would refer to the FBI for their
How
investigation
many were there?
and their information that they need to share in their investigation.
So they've shared the information with you. You just don't want to share the information with us, correct?
We have concurrent investigations that are going on.
So they have shared this information with you. You know the answer to the question. You just refuse to answer the question from the member of Congress who has subpoenaed you to be here. So I will ask you again. You know how many shell casings were on that roof. What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent.
What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent to talk to you about the information that the Secret Service has.
As I mentioned before, we somehow know less. How does that even happen? Kim Cheatle went in there today and somehow had less answers than your average guy who has a Twitter account. Honestly, less answers than your average guy who has a friend who has a Twitter account. Kim Cheatle was playing The Answer is Lava today. This was perhaps the most egregious display of stonewalling I have personally ever seen. And I've seen a lot of stonewalling. I've seen a few hearings in my day, and this is par for the course for a hearing, generally. You get asked the same question a trillion times, I guess because they're trying to get you to change your answer, and the person on the stand is mostly trying to protect their own ass. I get that. I get that that is a primary interest of Kim Cheatle, but you got to imagine that in a situation like this, you have to at least be willing to discuss the things we already know. It was mentioned several times throughout the hearing that she did not comply with some of the audio recordings, paperwork, text messages, all of the above that were subpoenaed for this hearing. That just wasn't there. She just didn't bring that. Okay, so, but you are the director of the Secret Service, so you probably know these things, right? You could give us some of the details, some of the timestamps. Again, your average guy has seen the video of people in the crowd yelling, "There's a man on the roof," a full 2 minutes before shots were fired. It is well-known information at this point that the Secret Service and the local police force were aware of this man for at least 30 minutes, if not hours, prior to the shooting. The only person who apparently doesn't quite know that is the director of the Secret Service. This man was identified as suspicious. It is suspicious when a strange-looking 20-year-old man climbs on top of a roof 100-some yards away from the president and aims a gun-like object at the president and then shoots his ear. That is indeed suspicious. Some would even venture us to say that's a threat. But the Secret Service, we thought it was odd too. You know, we scoped him out. He had a rangefinder. We were like, that's weird, but nothing technically wrong with a rangefinder. You can't kill somebody with a rangefinder. All you can really do is just find their range. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but a rangefinder is not a deadly weapon. Also, I don't know if there's a law. She changed her story several times over the past week, why there was no one on the roof. First, it was the local law enforcement's fault. Then it was, dude, it was a sloped roof. I mean, come on. It's sloped. Have you seen the angle of that slope? Santa himself would not land on that roof. And you expect the Secret Service, the people that are expected to take a bullet for the president, to expose himself to the danger of this sloped roof? You're asking a little much. But then that changed to, we had Overwatch. Okay, so how long did you know that the gunman was on the roof? And when was this communicated to the Secret Service? At what point did this guy with a gun at a presidential rally cross from a little suspicious to an actual threat? How long was he in the sights of the counter sniper? Why was he able to get off so many shots before he was neutralized by the sniper? Which sniper shot him? How many shots were fired? Was there another shooter? Did you find any shell casings at the scene? Did you deny more security assets to Trump for this event or any event prior? What exactly did you deny? You say you had no one on the roof, but you did have Overwatch. Well, what exactly was that Overwatch? Was it aerial with drones? You finally admitted to having a canine squad. Awesome. Did you know about the bomb? You're going to have to refer that to the FBI who's conducting an investigation. Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed that you, as the director of the Secret Service, would have conducted your own investigation, if that's what you want to call it, into any of these matters that seem to be like widely available information to everyone else in the world who happens to not be the director of the Secret Service. I understand that we are awaiting an apparently 60-day investigation to conclude by not only the FBI, who we know and trust and love so much, but also, and this is great, the Secret Service. I, for one, am very confident in knowing that in addition to the extremely uncompromised and uncorruptible FBI conducting an investigation into this matter, that we will also get to see, eventually, I guess, a thorough and impartial investigation into what exactly went wrong with the Secret Service that day, conducted by none other than the Secret Service. Yes, from the people who brought you Trump getting his ear shot off comes, here's why Trump got his ear shot off. I like that. But not only do you expect me to know what the FBI has to say about what went wrong in the Secret Service that day, but now you're asking me, the director of the Secret Service, to know what the Secret Service has to say about what went wrong in the Secret Service? What should I know? Says Kim Cheatle. All I know is that apparently the Secret Service is looking into it. And I'd love to know what conclusions they've come to so far, but have you ever tried getting in touch with the Secret Service? It's impossible. I'm only the director of the Secret Service. I'm kind of just waiting on them to let me know. And then as soon as I do, I'll let you know. Now, it of course came out later in the hearing that actually she does know not only what the Secret Service has to say about it, but she also knows what has been discovered so far in this FBI investigation. But that's not for you to know. That's for me to know and you to find out. It has been widely discussed that the head of the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, Alejandro Mayorkas himself, has explicitly instructed her to keep her mouth shut. And you can take that for what it is, but I'm gathering after today's hearing that what he meant by that was keep your fucking mouth shut. Don't tell them shit. It was to the point where I wouldn't have been surprised during the hearing today if a congressperson were to ask her, Director Cheatle, what color is your suit today? And she replies, I appreciate that question, and we are awaiting an internal investigation by the FBI, and as soon as that information is available to me, I will have that to you and the American public. Interesting. Someone call the FBI and ask them what color suit she's wearing today, because apparently Kim Cheatle cannot answer anything. Kim Cheatle is, in her own words, the most qualified person to be the head of the Secret Service in this country and on this planet. But that doesn't mean she has the answers. And so what we gather is that her job, much like the job of most bureaucrats, is purely to deflect, pass the buck. And while she assures us that that's not what she's doing, that is exactly what she's doing. And she's doing a pretty damn good job of it. See, it's not a good look for her, and there's absolutely no one in the country that believes that she should still occupy that position. And while she may not appear to be in any way competent at her actual job, she is incredibly competent at not telling you anything. And it's suffice to say that if the Secret Service were as good at protecting the president at that rally on July 13th as they are at protecting their own asses, we'd be having a completely different conversation right now. And for that, you get an L. Speaking of L's, Jamie Raskin. He is a representative from my home state of Maryland. Jamie Raskin is a walking L. He puts the L in Maryland. And I'm not going to give him quite as big of an L as I gave to the Secret Service and Kim Cheatle, because he did, in his defense, ask some fairly critical questions, much like most people in Congress today, which we'll talk about in a moment. But unfortunately, Jamie Raskin did find the need to make this, as many congresspeople did, a gun thing.
What happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a double failure. The failure by the Secret Service to properly protect former President Trump, and the failure of Congress to properly protect our people from criminal gun violence. We must therefore also ask hard questions about whether our laws are making it too easy for potential assassins to obtain firearms generally and the AR-15 specifically. Mr. Comparatore, former President Trump, and the other rally attendees wounded in Butler are now members of a club no one wants to belong to, the thousands of people who have fallen victim to mass shootings. Last year, we had 655 mass shootings in America, defined as 4 or more people being shot or killed in a single event.
And I get it that at first glance, it doesn't appear to be incredibly out of order to at least gloss over this in the conversation. That makes sense. But overall, there is a time and a place. And that time and place is not here. Right now, we are at a hearing interrogating the director of the Secret Service, trying to figure out how one of the most colossal failures in security history was allowed to transpire. A failure so blatant and colossal that it's almost irrelevant what the surrounding gun laws of the state are, and the fact that this kid was able to access an AR-15 legally owned by his father. We could get into the hypotheticals of, well, imagine if AR-15s weren't legal. Then what would he have done? Sure, this insane maniac wants to kill the president and has gone out of his way and sacrificed his life to do so, but if only we had made semi-automatic rifles illegal. If only we had made AR-15s illegal, this never would have happened. And while we're at it, we should probably make shooting the president illegal. I think that, I don't know why, I didn't hear anybody bring that up today. We should make that illegal. We should make climbing on top of a roof and aiming a gun at the president illegal, or at least considered to be a threat rather than a mere suspicion. We should do all of those things, but let's stay focused on the issue at hand. This is not a gun problem. There are gun problems. This is a Secret Service, national security, incompetence, and potential corruption problem. And that is what we need to be discussing. Because if I didn't know any better, it would almost appear that you were using this as an opportunity to push a separate political agenda, and maybe even worse so, provide some level of excuse or justification for the absolute failure of the Secret Service. So, Jamie, not bad today, not great. I'm still handing you an L. I can't help myself. L for you. You get an L. Now let's take a moment to examine Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC for short. And I'm not going where you think I might be going with this, because today AOC finds herself with a rare W. That's correct. I couldn't believe it either. It was pretty cool. Twitter was going off about it. The YouTube live chat was going off about it. It was almost as if somebody programmed an artificial intelligence AOC, an AIC, if you will, artificial intelligence Cortez, to say all the right things during this hearing.
You established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
And I know she's like a big hate crush for a lot of guys on the right. I gotta say, she's pretty hot when she makes sense. I was into it. She did not pivot to the gun issue as many people did. She did not make it a racial thing or a feminism thing or get into the whole DEI thing. She was asking legitimate questions. We know that the average range for the AR-15, the most common assault weapon in the country is around 400 to 600 yards. Why is it that a rooftop within 150 yards of the president was unsecured? Why would that not be factored into the security perimeter? Excellent question, AOC. Actually, an excellent point. It's actually very beautiful to see. I would imagine that as a very popular figure, she probably does, as she alluded to, come into many situations that are scary. People harassing her on the streets, security breaches, things like that, maniacs that don't like her, crazy fans. I don't know, but I think this was a personal issue for her. And I think because of that, she sort of transcended towing the party line. She spent a good portion of her time discussing that Americans deserve answers to these questions, that Kim Cheatle is obviously evading these questions. I'm not convinced that she cares all that much about Donald Trump, but I don't think she's a heartless person, and I don't think that she's one of the people that would have liked to see him killed that day. So you saw a very human side of her today. You saw a very honest side of her. And like I said, I think that's a good thing for the country, because this is something that now has politicians scared for their own safety, and now pretty much everyone can come together on that. Once our asses are on the line, we need answers. And so AOC, along with most of the people at that hearing, asked good questions. Unfortunately, no one was able to get any good answers, but hey, I'm not going to knock her for trying, and I respect it. So AOC, big dub. Now, as for the rest of the squad, of course, AOC being the most famous member of the squad, that includes Ilhan Omar, who is not there today, unfortunately. You have Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Presley. They've apparently added a bunch of more members to the squad. Jamal Bowman, like a guy, and a bunch of other women, and like another dude. So the squad is like more than what it used to be. But for all intents and purposes, it's those big four. And I'm also going to throw Jasmine Crockett in the mix from Texas. She is not technically part of the squad somehow. I don't know why, but she's definitely gunning for it. And she's definitely a member of the squad, at least from my vantage point. She has this thing where she appears to be doing like a fake black accent. Like she's doing like there's interviews that we've looked at where she sounds like a Valley girl. We looked into her past. She like went to like Catholic schools. She's from St. Louis, but like it doesn't seem, at the very least, she is playing it up. She appears to be playing a character on some level, which I see to be problematic, but that's beside the point. It doesn't help that today she spent her time talking primarily about racial issues and bias training. What?
One of my questions has to do with if you have any bias training that your officers undergo. And the reason that I ask that, because as a civil rights lawyer, I have learned so many times in having to deal with law enforcement that there usually is not a perception of a threat when it is a young white male, even if they are carrying a long gun. Yet a lot of times, at least in this country, when it comes to law enforcement, there is a perceived threat just by somebody having a little bit more melanin in their skin.
I was expecting the gun debate. I was expecting even really the DEI thing. But Jasmine Crockett used her time today to open up with the question on everyone's mind. The question that everyone else was scared to ask, which is, does the Secret Service undergo bias training? Because it appears fairly obvious to her, apparently, that one of the major reasons why this young man was able to evade the Secret Service and security to the level he did is because he was a young white man. See, when security sees a young white man flying drones over a rally, walking around with a rangefinder, climbing onto the roof with a gun and aiming at the head of the president, I'm sure he's a good kid. He doesn't mean anything, but it's a white guy, whatever. Are we going to freak out? It's suspicious. It's not going to be that. I wouldn't consider it a threat, though. I wouldn't consider it a threat. But if he was black, well, that's a whole different situation. So actually, and you may be surprised to hear this, but one of the major causes of what we experienced on July 13th at that Trump rally was a result of racism. I can't believe it either. Although I'm not surprised that somehow Jasmine Crockett managed to play 6 degrees of racism yet again and make this not a gun issue, which is like understandable, certainly not a Secret Service and security issue. Forget that. Not even a DEI issue. This is a racist issue. This is a black-white issue. Again, a white man shot a white president at a predominantly white rally, and that's racist. And Jasmine Crockett wasn't the only one to take this angle, although I do still consider that to be the most egregious. Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib minced no words about it either. Ayanna Pressley chose to use her time to discuss the DEI factor. Now, I will admit that DEI is a part of this conversation for many people. But once again, she has managed to take this issue, twist it around, and make it about something completely different than what people are discussing.
Some Republicans have exploited this moment to continue to attack progress towards racial justice and gender equity in America. Disappointing, but not surprising. I hesitate to repeat their racist and sexist tropes, but in summary, Republicans have wrongfully and shamefully stated that hiring women and people of color hindered the response to the shooting. Now, this is part and parcel of Republican strategy to constantly attack necessary diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, to undermine the contributions that women, people of color, the disability community, and others make to this country each and every day. And it is disgraceful.
See, in Ayanna Pressley's mind, in the minds of many people, actually, when we talk about DEI and affirmative action hiring, what we're really saying is people of color and women are not fit for these jobs. They don't quite understand the concept that we're really discussing the prioritization of hiring people from certain groups and demographics over their actual qualifications. See, no one actually has a problem with a qualified person of color. No one actually has a problem with a qualified woman in any job. Now, of course, there is a discussion about whether or not the out-of-shape women that we saw on Trump's detail were, in fact, fit to be running security for the former and future president. But that's a fairly obvious question. These were not only women, but they were visibly unqualified women. Because when you're a boots-on-the-ground security agent, there are certain physical requirements that you would imagine would come into play. Such as, perhaps, if you are expected to stand in front of the president and guard his body from bullets, that perhaps a 5'4" something woman is not the most qualified person to play human shield for a 6'4" man. That 1 foot gap from her head to his may pose a slight issue. And when you see certain people involved on this detail that don't appear to even meet the visible qualifications of a security guard, it does in fact beg the question that perhaps these women were hired not because they're qualified, but because they're women. And it also begs the question, how many qualified men were passed over in an effort to boost the stated quota goals of 30% female recruits by Kim Cheatle herself, who also appears to be wholly incompetent at her job and also appears to have been placed in this position not because she's qualified, but because she's a woman. These are very honest questions to ask. Now, nobody asked any questions in terms of Secret Service hiring when it came to race. I don't remember that happening at all. But the amazing thing about these hearings are that if you actually watch the whole thing and then you see Ayanna Pressley towards the end say a lot of people here today are talking about people of color and women not being able to perform their... I watched the whole thing. Nobody said that, Ayanna. You just said that. You're the first person today to say that. Unfortunately, most people aren't going to watch this hearing. So, unfortunately, most people are only going to see the clip of Ayanna Pressley saying that everyone at this hearing today was talking about DEI and people of color can't be Secret Service agents and women can't be Secret Service agents. And people are going to sit there and be like, wow, go in, Queen. I can't believe they were all saying that. They weren't. They weren't. You said that. It's almost kind of pathetic at this point that unfortunately these particular women feel the need to make everything about that. Every single issue that they discuss is through the lens of a woman of color. And it's embarrassing. It's honestly embarrassing. And you almost have to wonder, at what point do even the people who sympathize with that line of thinking start to feel like it's getting a little played out? I've obviously thought it was played out a long time ago, but there has to be a point when you're a black woman or a woman of color or whatever, where you kind of want to see more out of your representatives, the people that like supposedly represent you, other women of color. You want to see a little bit more out of them than just being a woman of color. Like, wouldn't it be cool if this person could be a phenomenal politician who asked good questions and started good conversations and instituted good policies, and they just happened to be a woman of color? Wouldn't that be awesome if that wasn't their one and only thing? I almost feel like that would be better for women of color. But that's just me. For some reason, we have to sit through this. For some reason, we're trying to figure out how the former president and future president of the United States was almost shot in the head. And we're trying to talk to the director of the Secret Service. And this sounds like a good time to discuss racism and sexism. Okay. I don't think so. But yeah, the squad, obviously, common L. Moving on, I'm going to take a moment just to address Congress as a whole. And Congress, congratulations. You just earned yourself a rare W. Congress was good today. And again, I really think a lot of that has to do with the fact that many of these people in power took this personally. I think that once they saw that the president was in the line of fire, that a person as prominent and as powerful as Donald Trump was almost killed due to a lapse in security of one of their most trusted security agencies, I think for a lot of people in power on both sides of the aisle, this was alarming. And so because it was a personal threat to them, both directly and indirectly, they kind of all dropped, for the most part, all the bullshit and just got down to brass tacks. They want answers just as much as we want answers, and that's normally not the case. You know, there's an old joke. There's many jokes like this where they say, like, you know, make it so that every person in Congress is fired anytime the national debt goes up by X amount, or anytime inflation rises over this amount, all the people in Congress lose their jobs, and watch how quickly they are able to manage the economy once it threatens their job and their livelihood. And that's true. And we kind of got to witness that today, because watch when something significant happens that is a threat to them personally, watch how quickly they drop all the bullshit and focus on solving the issue. So, I mean, maybe it's not for the best reason. Maybe it's just for a selfish reason. But I was rather satisfied with Congress's approach as a whole, save for a few people that we discussed. I was rather satisfied with their performance. They do get a W today. Now, as far as the American people, and I'm not sure what picture to use for an American person. How about me? Give me a second here. All right. The American people, obviously, an all too common L for the American people. Now, we didn't really have much say in the matter. We don't really have any leverage whatsoever, but obviously we took an L. This time not because of Congress, but because of the person that Congress was questioning. See, the American people have no clue what to think about this situation. No clue. And we're not getting any closer, and it's becoming increasingly evident that we're probably never going to get any closer to the answer here unless something drastically changes. The American people are probably better off doing what we've been doing, which is conducting our own investigation, quote unquote, doing our own research, because doing your own research has time and time again proven to be far more effective than trusting the experts. The experts are experts at not being experts. They are experts at not doing their job. And so if you, a regular everyday guy, put your trust in the experts, you will routinely find yourself fucked. So the American people, we took an L today, but we're going to bounce back. We're bouncing back because we have the internet, we have social media, we have independent journalists, we have people on the inside that understand that this is bullshit. And more people, as we're seeing, are coming to the realization that something needs to change. It's just not working the way it's going. We may have lost the battle today, but I do believe we'll win the war. That's a future W, but an L today for the American people. And last but not least, folks, I gotta say, the unfortunate reality is that when we discuss the conspiracy theorists, the crazy, loony, tinfoil hat wearing people out there that think this was more than just an accident, that this was potentially an orchestrated, facilitated, coordinated event, those crazy people, and I'm not sure what picture to use for that. Oh, how about me again? There we go. The conspiracy theorists. You know, the people that believe that there's a lot more to this story than what we're being told. That, I know it's not considered socially acceptable to entertain it, but I think there's something shady going on here. I think they might be hiding something. I'm all for talking about how DEI and incompetence is destroying our institutions, 100%, but this is a bridge too far even for that. And after the performance today, we saw from the director of the Secret Service, where she was wholly unwilling to give us any information whatsoever, that this appears to be a direct order from her higher-ups within the Biden administration. Well, I gotta say, if you're a conspiracy theorist, if you think that something's up with this whole thing, all too common W. Absolute W once again for the conspiracy theorists. Why does it feel like the people that believe the craziest possible things at any given point usually wind up being the ones that are right? I mean, even within the past couple weeks, it was the conspiracy theorists that thought that Biden was in late-stage dementia and was completely incapable of running the country and especially running for another 4 years. While many of the regular normies were at worst saying, he's not great, I'll give him that, he's definitely aging, but he's not as bad as they say he is. And then we watched the debate, and everyone in the country, left, right, center, was in unanimous agreement that this guy is gone. The people that said, you know what? They're going to push Biden out. I guarantee it. End of the month, Biden's gone. And they're like, oh, no, the delegates, the national convention, and the popular, they can't do that. He's gone. He's gone. They can't do it. Yeah, they can. They do whatever they want, okay? Democrats, they're going to install someone, Kamala, some other, Michelle Obama, who knows? It ain't going to be Biden. It's not the guy that you guys voted for, by the way. Now, mind you, you voted for him because he ran uncontested and you had no other choice. And it was also completely hidden from you that he was in late stage dementia and was completely incoherent and probably not running the country at all, not just over the past few weeks, because it certainly did not happen over the past few weeks. It's been going on for years. But that guy that you voted for, in spite of all of that, it's not him. It's someone else. And you have no say in it. The conspiracy theorists that thought that was going to happen, right again. But now, okay, now you're going to tell me that they're going to try to take Trump out. They're going to try to assassinate him. Really, dude? All right, dude, come on. Trump falls at a rally. Loud popping noises. BB guns. Staged event. Oh, wait. Trump was shot. Oh, wait. Actually, he wasn't only shot, but this is one of the craziest things we've ever seen. We can't explain how this possibly could have happened. I'm starting to wonder if maybe their story doesn't add up for a reason. And I know that's crazy. It always seems crazy. Until one day, it's reality. And folks, as I say often on this show, if you find yourself at this point in history and you've written off anything as too crazy, you're crazy. There's something amiss here. We're all starting to feel it. And so while you may say that, well, let's be honest. Let's not rule out incompetence. This Kim Cheatle lady, this director of the Secret Service, she can't do her job. It's okay. Let's not rule out incompetence. But have you considered the scary possibility that that's by design? The incompetence, the degradation of our institutions is by design? Because when you staff our once great agencies with incompetent, inert people, it allows them to be worked around by nefarious, malicious people. So maybe you don't actually have to coordinate with the Secret Service to allow for a massive security breach when you have ensured that the Secret Service is wholly incompetent and inept at their job. Now you don't need to orchestrate a security breach. You just have to take advantage of one. Okay, but here's the even scarier possibility. What if Kim Cheatle is good at her job? What if her job is to cover it up? My name is Jimmy Selesky. This has been Live from the Studio. Till next time, peace.